Greetings. My name is Joe Malachi Silberstein, and I'm our guest speaker this evening, and is my great honor to be here with you. And I recognize we might be having a few more people join us as I start to talk, but I'll begin. I was invited here today to speak with you and your community about the work that I do with Psalms, and I call it Psalms of Praise. I have created a record that has 33 of my favorite Psalms that have been put to music, and this record is going to be released in July of this year. So I was invited here by a friend of mine, Ann Gamel. When I was talking to her about this project, put me in touch with Lois. And the Psalms are important to me. I'm a teacher and I'm a minister of a different kind. And I'm also a musician, and I try my ministry. I bring it through music and through the Psalms and through songs. And the music that I'm going to be releasing is intended for that purpose, for spiritual purposes. I'm coming to you from the Germantown section of Philadelphia. This is my studio here. And this is where I recorded the project for Psalms of Praise. And so it seems fitting that I'm here discussing it with you now, and what they mean to me. The Psalms came into my life about half my life ago, maybe 25, 26 years ago, when I was in the music scene in Miami. I fell into the reggae music scene in the Rastafarian community, and the Psalms were a big part of that community. And that's where I first started to learn to pray with the Psalms every day. And there is a reggae band called Steel Pulse. And they put out a song called Chant a Psalm, where it's chant a Psalm a day, which really just sort of promoting that idea of praying with the Psalms every day. And that song and that experience putting me on this path of using the Psalms as a form of daily prayer is what eventually evolved into this project of my taking the 150 Psalms and narrowing it down to what were my favorite 30. It really was supposed to be 31 Psalms because there's 31 days in a month, but it wound up being 33. And when we release the project in July, we'll be releasing a Psalm a day for people to pray to and follow. And that's the purpose of it. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few of these Psalms and just to learn about how they can move us as people, move us as individuals spiritually, and also how the Spirit of God can flow through us through these words from the Psalms. Okay. The first one we're going to start out with is going to be Psalm 19. And what I ask is, if you have something to write with or something to write on, like some paper, I invite you to have that with you so that you can, if you are feeling inspired by the Psalms, that you can write something down. If you want to use your computer or phone, you can, but you don't have to. But these words are meant to move us personally and give meaning to our own lives. And after we listen to the Psalm, and I will have the words on the screen, following that, we're going to also listen to the instrumental, which is meant to give you just a minute or two to stay in that prayerful space and be with the words in your own meditation. Following that, I'll give a minute or a couple minutes if anybody wants to share out anything that came to them or how they're moved by it. There will be a time and space for you to be able to do that. Okay. After that, we'll move into a couple of the other Psalms, and I'll give some more information about the history and things like that. But in the meantime, I think we should get started. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And after I share my screen, I'm going to put the video up and along with the words to the psalm. And the video is already ready. Give me 1 second. Make sure I did this right. Yes. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky shows your handiwork. Day after day utter speech, and night after night show knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them God has set a sacred place for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of a chamber, and rejoice as a strong person to run a race. God's going forth is from the end of heaven, all through the ends of it, and there's nothing hidden from the heat felt. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether, more to be desired than they are of gold. Yes, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey from the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand these errors? Cleanse me from secret faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous wrongdoing. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and shall I be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Okay. Just stay in that space right now and stay in that prayerful place with these words. I'm going to play the instrumental and just give you a chance to meditate on that, and the words will stay on the screen. right. Now, in the chat, I just put the words to Psalm 19. And before I say anything, I would like to just open up the space if there's anybody who wants to share anything that they got from this psalm. You might need to unmute yourself.
This is one of my favorites, and I like it because here is, the king of all Judea saying, I might have faults and I need somebody wiser than I am to make sure I don't mess up.
Yeah, definitely. I think even as much of a leader. Now, this was attributed to King David, I think, this psalm. And as great a leader as he may have been, he recognized that, yeah, he's still making mistakes. One of the things that I like about the Psalms is I think that they also, even though they're talking about God, right? These are also like kind of like a code for how we live, So when it says things like the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple, the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing in the heart. So like when we're testifying, when we're giving our testimony, we want to use wisdom when we're using that, making things that are seemingly complex simple, right? There's sort of a code for us to follow as well, not just how are we. It's not outside of us. The Spirit of God flows through us, through inside of us. So that's part of what I think we pick up out of some of these words. It is standing in awe of God, but it is also the Spirit of God flowing through us, kind of guiding us in how that we are supposed to be living. Okay. Okay.
What, can you hear me? Yeah. What's interesting is the last part of the psalm I know those verses extremely well. They're part of, I'm pretty sure they're part of an Anglican prayer service. And I had always thought they came from the New Testament. I don't know why. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's part of a prayer that's very familiar to me. May the meditations of, may whatever it is.
May let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. Yes. And I'm glad that you picked up on that line, because as a fan of reggae that I am, then that line appears in one of the most famous reggae songs, which is called "The Rivers of Babylon." And "Rivers of Babylon" is a song that was it takes Psalm 137 and starts out with "By the rivers of Babylon, where we lay down, and then we wept when we remembered Zion," because the Israelites are in exile in Babylon when this was written. But at the end of that song, "Rivers of Babylon," it quotes from Psalm 19, saying, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer." So, this comes back to also giving us that guidance about how we speak. My meditation, upholding a good meditation in your heart, one that is worthy of being in the sight of God. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Does anyone else want to say something more about this particular psalm, Psalm 19? All right. So we're talking about the history of the Psalms. They they're ancient songs, really, literally, almost 3,000 years old. Okay. And most of the Psalms in the Bible came originally from David. Now, David, who before he was King David, he was just a shepherd boy. And when he was young, the first king of Israel was King Solomon or King Saul. And King Saul was like not doing everything he was supposed to do according to some of the Jewish traditions. And the prophet Samuel at the time recognized this, and he was ordered by God to anoint, to find David, and he found David and he anointed him when he was only like 10 years old, but it was done in secret. So only David and his family knew that this happened. Okay, and they tried to keep it a secret. But David then, when the Israelites were battling with the Philistines, this is when we have the famous story of David and Goliath. Because Goliath was their greatest warrior. He was like probably like a 7'7" guy at the time, right? And and at this time, there was this challenge was like our greatest warrior against your greatest warrior. We can just have each of our best warriors fight each other, and that way the armies don't have to kill each other. Okay, so nobody wanted to fight Goliath, so David's like, I'll do it. And he was like, he was like a little shepherd boy. And they thought it was a joke. Like they were like the Goliath was like insulted, right? And he wasn't taking it seriously. But David, I think, knew him because he had been anointed. He had that confidence. And then there is that legendary confrontation when he, uses a slingshot and propels it and hits Goliath in the head and knocks him down, and then winds up killing Goliath with his own sword. All right. So, and this propels David into like, instant stardom as a child. But he was already a singer. He used to play the harp when he was a shepherd. And so when he then killed Goliath, they brought him into the king's court, and he used to play songs for the king, for King Saul. So he's here, and then he becomes a military leader, and he winds up becoming, having incredible success. And this makes Saul jealous. And Saul actually wants to go and try to kill David. Okay. So David goes into exile until Saul winds up falling, and then by his own in battle. And then they recruit David to then become the next king after that. Because so when David winds up becoming king, David ruled for 40 years. And then he still continued to play these psalms the whole time. He would sing and he would play for the people as a way of praise, and as a way of just bringing the people of Israel together. And that's why of the 150 psalms that we have, there's about 73 of them are attributed to David. Okay, so this next psalm that we're going to look at is one of the most famous psalms, and it is this Psalm 23. So you may know it well. It has special meaning to me personally. When my stepbrother passed, and when my father also passed away, we had Psalm 23 on the other side of the prayer cards. So I think a lot of people find strength in this psalm. So we're going to do a similar thing where we're going to listen to the psalm. We'll look at the words. I invite you to just look at the words as well. We'll listen to the instrumental after it and give you a chance to just be in the space, and then share something out about it when we're done. Okay. So I'm going to put the psalm into the chat as well. Okay. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside the quiet waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in the paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. All right, so just stay in that prayerful space. And we're going to play the instrumental, and I just want you to pray and meditate. How do the words move you? Okay. So, what do you get from Psalm 23?
It's just incredibly comforting. I mean, I love it. I sing it. I know the words. It is. It's interesting that you used it for your loved ones' funerals because it makes sense. It's just incredibly comforting.
It's very much so.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. I mean, there's how many superlatives can one say? You know, every now and then I want to cut things out of the Bible, but I always want to keep Psalm 23. If you keep nothing else, keep Psalm 23. Yeah. What do you think was happening that made him write it?
When I see some of the words, like, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I know you're with me. And I mean, David, remember, he went through a lot of trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
And he was a warrior.
Right.
And so I think that's what he was, just knowing in the depths of the most difficult circumstances that he was going through, with literally like even death being around him, he was staying strong with the Spirit of God. And I feel like that is what we can, all sort of get out of that still, that we live in a world that we see a lot of calamity going on around us often, and this is about maintaining that spiritual strength within yourself and that connection with God, that's knowing that that's going to pull you through it. So, is there anyone else who wants to share a thought that they have on Psalm 23?
Yeah, I love the sense of safety. It's a whole nother gear to be in. it doesn't matter if you're in Ukraine and they're dropping bombs around you. You're not going to waste your energy being scared, which won't keep that bomb from hitting your house anyway. You're going to just do the right thing and be the best person you can be all the time, and not allow your mind to stray off into thinking about stuff that's scary.
Yes. I think a lot of that is, definitely part of it. Everything that's going on around you, and even with if there's bombs going off and if you hear gunshots going off, and keeping that faith, allowing yourself to kind of be held in the hand of God, and that faith, carrying you through, and you make it through to see another day. So.
Yeah, okay. and even if you don't make it physically, the fact is so that it doesn't matter. You're going to be okay one way or another. It doesn't guarantee that your life will be saved, is what I'm saying. But what it guarantees is that you will be calm, and you will understand that whatever happens will happen. And very important that you keep going, which is essentially what Lois was saying. Yeah. Well, one of our members of our Wednesday group used to work for the American Bible Society, and they were handing out free Bibles in Ukraine, and they were running out. People really wanted Bibles. They wanted food, but they wanted Bibles. So all the churches and so that it makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, people they find strength in difficult times in prayer, and the Psalms also were, they were written as songs. They were performed as songs. They continue to be performed as songs in houses of worship. And they were really not written, like they were written down by the scribes, right? So people were performing them, and they were being written down. The book of Psalms itself was not actually assembled and put together until the Israelites were in exile in Babylon. So, Israel then, got attacked by Babylon, and the Babylonians took all the Israelites away to captivity. And the book of Psalms was put together at that point in time, as a lot of the books were put together at that point in time, because they didn't have a temple to go to worship. So by putting the book of Psalms together, you got to remember they were on scrolls, right? So it's like, this was to give, so people could just have like their own temple, like so that people on their own could continue to pray with these Psalms, like while, and that's why in like Psalm 137 it says, by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, because they're literally sitting there away from Jerusalem, away from the temple, and using these to still maintain that connection with God in the midst of their being in exile and all of this hard life going on around them. Okay. So
yeah, and they would have been edited too. I mean, if there's an oral tradition over years and years until people write them down, which is probably why they're so perfect. I mean, any unnecessary words, they just throw them out. Yeah. Yeah,
that definitely happened, and that used to be like a very strong oral tradition. There were some of the priests, especially in the tribe of Levi, that's what they had to do. They had to like spend their lives memorizing the Torah and being able to recite it again, right? And a lot of the books were passed down through an oral tradition that way, through people memorizing it, and that was their job, was to just then recite it until they were in captivity. So when they're in captivity, they couldn't do it as easily anymore. So that's when they started collecting everything. Much of the Bible was written down and collected and assembled together during that 70-year period when the Israelites were in captivity in Babylon. So much of it is attributed to that time, for sure. So what I would like us to do next is I'm going to introduce this next psalm, which is going to be Psalm 139. And when I was first invited to come and talk tonight, I was invited by a friend of mine named Ann Gamel. And I saw her at World Cafe Live, and she asked me what my favorite psalm was, and I said Psalm 139, because it just something about it really connected. And just also was actually at my father's memorial service in 1999. I read Psalm 139, so it has special meaning to me. Except I changed part of it. I took some creative license with it when I read it out loud, and I'll speak to that after we look at the words. Okay. But nonetheless, on 4 months ago today, and I went down to Ocean City, New Jersey, where my family has property in Summers Point. We've had property there for 80 years. And in the Greg Egg Harbor of Ocean City, New Jersey, is where we actually spread my father's ashes when he passed away in 1999. And so 4 months ago, I went down there to take a workshop on the Psalms with the Monasteries of the Heart. And on that day, we took Psalm 139. And while I was there doing the workshop with Psalm 139, I got an email from Ann connecting me with Lois. So I just kind of felt like maybe it's all mystical, cosmic messaging, meaning we're supposed to do Psalm 139 for this talk here today. Okay, so we're going to take Psalm 139. It's a little bit longer. It's about 3 minutes or so, but it's I find one of the more moving psalms for me, and there's a lot of parts in it. And then we'll also give you some time to be with it, be with the meditation on it. And I'm gonna drop it in the chat as well. So if you want to pull up on your own, you should be able to have that ability, even while even if I'm sharing the screen. Now I'm going to take over the screen in a second here. Okay. And just take it in. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I'm sitting down and when I'm rising up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You encompassed my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but lo, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have beset behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit? Where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend up into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light around me, yet the darkness does not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. For the darkness and the light are both alike to you. For you have possession of my reins. You held me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows right well. My substance was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in your book all my members were written, which were continually fashioned, when as there were none of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I shall count them, they are greater in number than grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Surely you will slay the wicked, O God. Therefore, depart from me, you bloody people, for they speak against you wickedly. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate them, O Lord, that hate you? And do I not grieve those that rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them among my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see that there be no wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. Okay. I'm going to play part of the instrumental for about 2 minutes, because it's 3.5 minutes long. And then just stay in the prayerful meditation. Okay. So I want to give a chance for those of you who, and I realize I didn't put the whole before I speak on the psalm, I want to give an opportunity for anyone who was here and just experienced that to have a chance to say something about it.
I think the best part of this psalm is the idea of being fully seen and fully known and fully loved. And it's someone who can thoroughly see you and loves you. This is a complete connection. It isn't, oh, he won't like me if he finds out that I, bite my fingernails or whatever. It's that there is nothing this person knows about you that can alter the love.
Yeah, that's deep. There's several lines in here that I find that I count among my favorites. But where it says, if I ascend up into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. Right. So, and sometimes we feel like we're soaring. Things are great. We're on top of the world. Life couldn't be better. But then sometimes we're down in the depths of it, right? As low as we can go. But notice the language says, if I make my bed in hell, it was basically still saying that, I did this to myself, even though I kind of goofed and made this own problem, you're still there guiding me, haven't given up on me. So, and even there, your hand shall lead me, your right hand shall hold me. And the next part is one of my favorite parts as well, where it says, if I say, surely the darkness will cover me, even the night shall be light around me, yet the darkness does not hide from you, for the night shines as day, since the darkness and the light are both alike for you. So seemingly, if we're in a dark cloud, a guy can penetrate that. If we're feeling in the light, that's wonderful. But even in the depths of our despair, the Most High is there, guiding us through it all. But we need to take those steps out of it. And this other part about, for you have possession of my reins, you held me together in my mother's womb. It's just kind of bringing it back to the original creation of where we come from, and that God has been there before, during, and after all of that for us. So some of those parts of it really resonate very strongly with me. For my substance was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. And you saw my substance being imperfect. So recognizing that, we're not perfect, and even when we're in the lowest parts of the earth, we can come up out of that. And God is always there for us in those ways. So this psalm, it's one of my favorite psalms, just because the way it kind of connects with my soul is really deep. Even though it's one of my favorite psalms, and I found that I have trouble with some of the wording. And when I had mentioned before, when I read this psalm out loud at my father's memorial service, I changed the ending. I kind of omitted part of it, right? because in the setting, in the end, when he says, "Do I not hate them that hate you, and do I not grieve those who rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them amongst my enemies." All right, so that part I didn't read at my father's funeral because, right, kind of like there's all kinds of people in there. Like, who are you talking about? Like so. But at the same time, because I'm a very loving person, and I'm always about that, trying to bring the idea of love to heal everything. So I have trouble with that part, talking about the hatred, and especially how we see like love and hate today. And I have to like try to rationalize it, right? If you look at it and says, when it says like, I hate them with perfect hatred. I mean, I think that the way I look at that means like, I hate this part of what this person's doing wrong, but okay, I don't like that they're mistreating other people. I don't like that they're not treating others the way somebody who would be following like the will of God should be treating someone. All right, but I'm going to forgive them for that. Because I hate this part about them. Okay, I hate that this is happening, and I grieve that. So because that wording I think is very careful. I hate them with perfect hatred. I mean, I'm only looking at that part of it. But we're flawed people. And we need to have forgiveness and people make mistakes, and eventually we get to give time and space and room for people to be able to come around. Okay, so that's that part that I even though it's one of my favorite Psalms, that part I struggle with how to rationalize being okay with that. So.
Well, I think that's one of David's mistakes, if David wrote that one, because just as David feels fully seen, fully known, and fully loved, anyone who is saying bad stuff about God is still fully seen, fully known, and fully loved. And I think if David sees it any other way, that's one of his mistakes.
Yeah, right. It could be. And, and to what you said, that regardless if you're seeing God or not, and I believe we all see God differently, and we're all, and that's why God gives us many different ways to connect with that divine energy. That's what I believe anyway. And then I see people, I have friends of mine who are atheists, and I call them spiritual atheists. Okay, because they really have incredible ethics and values, and they treat people wonderfully and with love and care and compassion, but they kind of reject the kind of traditional definition of God, and they are unhappy with the way they see the way religion has been used in the world. All right, so they reject all of that, but they still treat people with a golden heart. So I think it comes down to that, right? And maybe they're not defining God the way in a traditional way, but it doesn't mean that God is not working through them in their own way. It's just yeah, and so that's how I and some of my best friends, right, are atheists, but they're hanging out with me, and I like, and I'm a minister, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't ever judge them for that, and I kind of look at it like we're all just sort of in it together, and we all have to find our own path, and I believe even with the Quaker community, that's like a big part of it, right? And that's part of when Pennsylvania was started as the Quaker state. It was to give everyone the freedom to find their own way, and to not have a state religion, and to let everybody just kind of come and figure that out, and that's one thing that I can appreciate that about the Quaker belief system. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they would like to say about this Psalm 139?
Yeah, it seems to me, though, that churches, I mean, I've been to a lot of different sorts of churches, and generally during a service at some stage, there's a laundry list of what you want God to do. You're praying for this and that and one thing or another. Well, this suggests it's a waste of time. Yeah.
Well, it's all in how you see it. It's all open to interpretation.
If everything is seen, all your problems are known, all your desires are known, everything under the bed is known, in the dark and in the light.
That's true.
So why are you praying for things like praying for health of someone, or praying for, what's the purpose of that? How do you see that?
I think the prayer gives us a certain sense of fulfillment, a certain sense of calm, a certain sense of centering ourselves, clearing our thoughts, and bringing that flow of God's energy through us. That's how I see it. And whether you're praying for something, ultimately we need to be the ones to take the action, right? So there's a phrase that many are called but few are chosen. And I kind of look at that like, if you're calling upon God and praying for these things, you still need to make the choice to do something, right? You can't think you're just going to like pray and miraculously, God's going to wave some metaphysical wand and things are going to happen. Like, you might get that thought planted into your mind about what you should do or the action you should take to make the situation better. You need to choose to take that action, though. Right. So if you are praying and that you then have this thought, this meditation comes to you and what you should do, be like, okay, but then you still don't do anything about it, then nothing's going to change. Right. So you still need to make that choice to step up and take action based on what that prayerful thought that comes to you during that period of time is.
Yeah, I remember a Nigerian bishop who's probably the best preacher I've ever listened to. He used to say, well, you have to give God praise because he's got everything. All you can do is praise, which I thought was a very interesting comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a long-term relationship with God. Right. It's the way I look at it. And some things don't always happen overnight, and sometimes when we're praying for something and we think it's supposed to be one thing, it's really something else.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, like I had been praying, like I'm working on a record, and I was praying for so long and so sure that when my record was finally ready, I was going to bring it to this producer and he was going to love it. And, and he's going to take me to the next level. I was so certain that was going to happen. And then that didn't happen. I was like, and the reason why was because, and at first I was upset about it. I'm like, how could this be for forever? I was so sure that this was the right path, but because it was another door about to open for me.
Right.
So as it was, a better situation happened. If I had, because I even though I was praying on this one, and I thought for certain I was going to get a chance to work with these people for like years. I thought this was going to be the case. Time came, it wasn't the case. I was like, felt defeated. But then next thing I know, the next door opened and it's better for what I need to do. And the record is way better now as a result of my kind of understanding that, yeah, maybe I thought that was what I was supposed to do. But the reality is that it's a better, like my prayers were answered and I didn't realize how it was going to happen. So we can't always get fixated on thinking just because we think it's like we're praying for something the way we envision it in our mind, that's what it should be. If it's not the way we envision our mind, then God didn't answer our prayer. Prayer got answered by my getting kind of put onto it, altered into a different path. Okay. So, well, I know that we've been on for about an hour now, and this is the amount of time that you had asked me to be here for. And I'm happy to talk a little bit longer or take some questions if you would like, or talk more about any part of my process, or if you feel like we're ready to conclude, I'm okay with that too. And Lois,
could you tell us about your process for writing the music and for the recording?
Yes. So my process for writing the Psalms, I'll take you through a quick, show you how I do it. So one of the things that I do is I would go to this website, and it's called the Bible Gateway. On the Bible Gateway, you will find over 100 different versions of the Bible, and I might pick a Psalm, and in this case, we'll do Psalm 93 because it's a short one. And when I first decided to do this, I reviewed all 150 Psalms, and then I narrowed it down to my favorite ones, and I went through this process. Now, the King James Version is a public domain version, so you can copy it without having there be any kind of copyright infringement. And I would take the Psalm and I would start to organize it. And I'm also a social studies teacher and a writing teacher. So now I put my writing teacher hat on, and I would go through and just start to edit this as if I was an English teacher. All right. So say the Lord reigns. Instead of using he, I prefer to use God or the Lord. The Lord reigns. God is clothed in majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength. And we're not going to say wherewith, because we don't really say that anymore. Okay. And I usually alternate between God and the Lord. God has, instead of girded himself, God has girded. The world is established, that it cannot be moved. Now, we don't really say thy anymore. We say your. Your throne is established of old. You are from everlasting. And the floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods have lifted up their waves. The Lord is on high. The Lord is on high, is mightier than the noise of many waters. Yes. Than the mighty waves of the sea. Your testimonies are very sure. Holiness becomes your house. O Lord, forever. All right, so this is my process. So basically just go through. We've edited it down to make sense for the modern day now. And then after that, what I would do is I would study it. I would recite it first, then I would record it just myself on my phone. Then I would come in here into the studio and I would record a more official version, just a cappella, just myself reading through the Psalms. And then I would take the a cappella version of me, just the audio only of the words, and I give that to my friend and producer. His name is Will Brock, and then he would listen back to what I say, and he would compose the music to it and put the music behind it. Then he gives me the instrumentals, and then we record it again. Then now I'm listening to the music and I'm recording the Psalms again over the music. We take it and mix it all together and get it mixed and mastered so that it sounds very like professional recording. And that's the process. So that process that I showed you, anyone can do that. You can create your own Psalms all day long, your own version, using the public domain version, and revise it so it suits the way that you like to speak. Okay. But that's my process. And my next part of the process is to actually take a live version of this out and perform it in different places where I have the instrumental tracks, and I'm going to play the instrumentals and read the Psalms live. And that's the next step of this process. So I hope I answered your question. Are there any other questions for me related to the Psalms or what I do or anything like that?
I have a question, which is, have the two of you considered setting the text of the Psalms to song?
Just putting the text?
Voice over an instrumental track, but actual songs.
Instead of reciting it, you mean just putting?
Yeah, like an art song sort of thing.
So just put the words there without reciting it, with putting the words with the instrumentals.
Well, you might want a different setting of the text than the instrumentals that you have, right? If you were going to actually set the text so it could be sung.
Oh, I see. You're like, I don't know if we're going to do that. I mean, if people want to, the text will be available when this gets published. The videos are going to be published, and it's going to also be on various streaming services. The text will also be available, like in the YouTube description for each of the Psalms. The text will be there. And if people wanted to use my version of the text to put it to a different song to sing it, I would be okay with that. That's not how I normally have done it. I know it's a very popular thing to do. If you go to many churches, they're singing the Psalms, right? They were originally sung. That's true. These are song lyrics, really. Okay. But I've always just read them and read them more like poetry. And that's just what I'm used to. Although I'm a singer, so you would think that I should be able to translate that to singing them, but it's just not where I guess where I am with it though. When the videos come out, because when I was playing the videos today, they were from my computer, from the files I have on my computer. But when they'll be on YouTube, the words will also be available. Like if people want to put on the closed captioning, the words will appear on the screen. But I probably will not be singing them to song right now. But if someone else wanted to take the rendition of the phrasing of how I revised the lyrics and wanted to use them, I would be totally fine with that, because I got them from a public domain document anyway. So
Fair
it's
enough.
fine.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Tony was hoping for, you know how the song "Turn, Turn, Turn" is from Ecclesiastes.
Right.
So it's a new take in a way, because it's not a direct quote of Ecclesiastes, but at the same time, everyone knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm thinking of the larger, wider, I should say, art song genre, Schubert, Rorem, whatever.
Yeah. I think "Turn, Turn, Turn" is a great example of that, because that's definitely taken, straight from scripture. And there's a couple other examples. There's U2 has a song called 40, which is from Psalm 40. So they use the first, I guess, few lines of Psalm 40, what they just sing over and over again in this song. And then they used to use it to close their concerts with. Because U2, they were like a super religious band. I don't know if everybody knows that, but they almost quit music because they were so into studying the Bible. So, but yeah, that's. I think that there's a space for that. I don't know if that's what I'll do or not, because I have a lot of other music that we're preparing to put out, and I'll probably keep this more of like a spoken word format for me for now, and
I really like it. I like the simplicity of it. It's really very nice. I really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really nice. Yeah.
The plan right now, we're going to release all 33 Psalms together as one gigantic video first, and let everybody preview it. And then we're going to release one per day in July. So that's the current plan right now.
Well, thank you. This has been really a wonderful experience.
Very moving.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to be here and be with you. This is my very first time ever doing this with Psalms. So, I'm really super appreciative that we're able to do this in such a small group, to give me a chance to kind of get my feet wet, so to speak. Because this is the type of thing that I would like to do more of. So, I appreciate the opportunity for being here. And, if you have some feedback that you want to share, that you think can help me as I can continue to do this, I'll be more than happy to listen to what you have to say.